So I haven't prepared this at all, but I thought that it might be a good idea to share some of my experiences. I went to KubeCon China a couple of weeks ago. For me, it was a mind-blowing experience. I'm originally from Argentina. I've been here in London for 12 years already. So I think that I got used to already to like the European weather, the culture, all that stuff. Going there, it felt like a completely different place, and I wanted to share some of those experiences. I'm also into platform engineering and like what Avi is mentioning here, and so some of the topics are a little bit related. I work for a company that's called Diagrid. We do cloud-native stuff. I will talk a little bit about that later as well. So I went there. I went to KubeCon China. I did a presentation with a friend, Alexa. She works for Bloomberg, and she's building platforms for data scientists. So basically grabbing a lot of open source tools, putting them together for data scientists to train and to publish and to serve models. At pretty large scale, Bloomberg is like a news outlet, right? Like, so they just process a lot of information, and they need to do a lot of that stuff. So they have been building a lot of internal practices that are pretty interesting to see, and how do they use technology and how do they adopt new tool is pretty interesting. So I complemented that with kind of like my perspective on how people do platform engineering, mostly focused on developers, right? Like I'm a developer at heart, so I've been always looking into these developer tools. So we tried to cover a bunch of different open source projects and how do they map together, how you can put them to work together to just build platforms for specific needs. So for example, data scientists using projects like Kserve, or just more like generic things like auto-scaling with Knative and APIs with like something like Dapper, and like even using service meshes like Istio to do more advanced traffic management. I don't know if you're familiar with these tools, but I did a blog post about like KubeCon China and my experience if you want to check it out there. So great experience. I was surprised with the kind of presentations that I saw there that I wasn't not expecting to see. First of all, because by being here in the West, like my interactions with Chinese groups or projects has been kind of like low. I know Chinese people, I work with Chinese people, but that they are all located here or in Europe or in the US. So working with, like talking and having conversations with people from there was pretty interesting. They are also pushing really, really hard for platform engineering. And I saw some like companies and entities like organizations that were pretty advanced in the journey. So that was pretty interesting to see as well, like in first person. One of the things that caught my attention, and it's a project that I knew already before going, but I hadn't dig that deeper to understand, their impact or how is it working, is open functions. Does somebody knows that project here? Have heard about it before? Okay, so we have one person. So open functions, I think it's a clear example on how to basically bring different projects together to build something that it's specific for like a use case, like in this case, function-based, platforms. We all know here, like based on Avi's presentation, like building platforms is hard. Sometimes it's so hard that you need to, have dedicated teams and spend a lot of money and resources into it. Creating experiences and targeted experiences on top of these platforms is even harder. You need to actually understand your users and understand what they need and how do they do things. So yeah, creating kind of like that function-based experience is hard, and this Chinese-led project, that it's a CNCF project as well, is actually doing that. If you can see kind of like the architectural diagram of the project, you will see that there is a bunch of open source tools that mostly were created here in the West that are combined together to provide that functionality. And it kind of makes total sense to me, right? Like they are writing glue code just to put all these tools to work together for specific use cases. Knative for auto-scaling, it's one of the projects that I've been working for some time. If you know Knative, there was a presentation today about serverless. It's a serverless thing that will help you with auto-scaling your HTTP-based traffic and provide you kind of like some advanced capabilities. Keda was also mentioned today for auto-scaling almost everything, right? Like if you want to scale based on messages on Kafka queues, then you just use something like Keda. And then the other project that I'm working on right now, that it's called Dapper, because we are quite good in the Kubernetes space to know how to run things. And for example, here you have build, how do you containerize your functions, how do you run them? But then when you're running functions, you need to think about the developer experience, how these functions will connect to the available infrastructure, how do they connect between each other, and how do they are just going to, just do work for you without pushing developers to learn about all these tools. And I think that that's the complicated part. How do we give, APIs to developers to actually do their work? And that's basically what Dapper does. If you don't know kind of like the Dapper project, check it out, dapper.io, and it will basically give you APIs to interact with infrastructure in a resilient way where you can just just store state, you can retrieve state, you can emit messages without actually knowing the infrastructure that is required for your applications to do that, allowing the platform team to configure all these things. Before I go, because I'm running out of time, I wrote a book, and all the tutorials of the book showing open source projects in the CNCF are in that repository. So if you're interested and if you like it, please check it out. Thank you very much. That's pretty much it.